All right, let's dive right into this explainer on marine radar and ARPA, specifically looking at CPA, TCPA, and how exactly you choose your radar band when things get rough. Picture this for a second. You're standing on the bridge of a massive cargo ship, and you are right in the middle of a zero visibility storm. I mean, thick fog everywhere. You literally can't even see the bow of your own ship, and the wind is howling so loud you can't hear a thing. But you know somewhere out there in the dark, another vessel is heading straight for you on a direct collision course. Your eyes are completely useless here. So, which radar band do you actually trust? Getting this call wrong, it means you're driving thousands of tons of steel completely blind. To figure this out, we really need to understand how radar actually sees the world when we simply can't. Quick recap. It all comes down to the echo principle. Basically, radar shouts into the dark using an electromagnetic pulse and then just listens for the echo. The system measures the precise millisecond delay of that returning signal. And since we know the speed of light, which is a blistering 300,000 kilometers per second, by the way, we can calculate the exact distance. We just take that time, divide it by 2, since the pulse has to travel all the way out and all the way back, and boom, we have our distance. But here's the thing. The specific type of radio wave you choose to use, that changes absolutely everything. So modern ships are usually packed with two main tools, X-band and S-band. X-band operates at 9 gigahertz, and you can think of it kind of like your high-definition camera. It gives you this incredibly sharp detail, perfect for spotting, say, tiny fishing boats or tracing out really intricate coastlines. On the flip side, S-band at 3 gigahertz is your sledgehammer. It definitely lacks that fine detail, but its longer wavelength punches cleanly right through severe weather and heavy seas. If you're looking for long-range tracking in an open ocean storm, S-band is absolutely your go-to. But guys, here is the trap. If you're in a heavy storm and you're relying strictly on that sharp detail of the X-band, you are essentially flying blind. Why? Because the exact same heavy rain that wipes out your visual sight is going to clutter up your X-band screen with static. The target literally gets lost right when you need that clarity the most. A truly skilled watch officer knows to blend both of them. You use the S-band to punch through the worst of the storm, and then switch to X-band for those sharp details once you're close enough to clear the clutter. But, just spotting a blip on a screen, that's not enough to actually prevent a collision. Enter ARPA, the Automatic Radar Plotting Aid. I like to think of ARPA as basically a chess engine for the ocean. It takes all those raw echoes, acquires up to 100 of them simultaneously, and tracks them over multiple sweeps of the antenna. Now, it's not going to move the pieces for you, right? But it does calculate a target's speed, its course, and its future path. And in doing so, it spits out two incredibly important numbers. The first of those numbers is CPA, or closest point of approach. This is the exact geographical proximity of an impending encounter. Essentially, the system analyzes all the vectors and says, hey, if nobody changes course, this is precisely how close you two are going to physically get. It defines your spatial risk. It lays out the exact geometry of a potential collision. But knowing how close you'll get is really only half the equation, right? You also need to know when. And that brings us to TCPA, the time to closest point of approach. This is your unforgiving ticking clock. It's the exact countdown down to the minute and second until you hit that moment of maximum danger. ARPA actually sets off alarms based on these two numbers to reduce your workload and keep you aware of the situation. Honestly, it takes so much of that terrifying guesswork out of driving in the dark. Imagine staring at your ARPA screen and seeing a CPA of just 0.3 nautical miles, which is dangerously close, by the way, and a TCPA of exactly 12 minutes. Now, if you have a 20-knot closing speed, 12 minutes is a hard deadline. It disappears incredibly fast. International collision regulations actually expect early and substantial course changes, so when you see those numbers, you have to act immediately. But there's a pretty major catch to trusting those numbers blindly. I like to call this the stabilization trap, because, well, what happens when smart machines seem to lie to you? Let's say you have two ships. They have identical, perfectly functioning ARPA systems, and they're tracking the exact same target in the exact same water. Believe it or not, they can get completely different calculations for that target's course, speed, and collision risk. Why? It's not a broken system. It comes down to one hidden setting that a lot of new officers barely even think about. And if you get this setting wrong, your entire collision avoidance picture is quietly and very dangerously off. It all comes down to your stabilization mode. You have to ask yourself, is your radar data sea stabilized or is it ground stabilized? Sea-stabilized calculates movement relative to the surrounding flowing water around you, which, is perfectly fine for basic heading monitoring. But ground-stabilized calculates movement relative to the fixed seabed below. Now, I know that might sound like just a minor textbook distinction, but out on the real ocean, when it comes to avoiding a collision, it literally changes the entire math equation. Let's look at a fantastic real-world scenario that really tests this. Say you're navigating a tidal strait, and there's a strong 3-knot current. 2 vessels ahead of you are both showing a speed of 10 knots on your ARPA in sea-stabilized mode. So their speed through the water is identical. Does that guarantee they have the same actual track over the ground and pose the exact same collision risk to you? The answer is an absolute no, because their headings relative to that current might be different. The current's sideways push is going to affect each vessel's actual path differently. Trusting water reference speeds in a strong current is incredibly dangerous. You absolutely must verify your ARPA is set to ground-stabilized mode before you go trusting your life to those CPA and TCPA numbers. So, putting it all together, a master watchstander knows this is really a system of systems. You use X-band for that high-resolution precision, and you switch to S-band to punch through the storms. You always verify you're in ground-stabilized mode in strong currents so your data isn't skewed. And finally, you rely on CPA and TCPA to define your exact collision risk. Blending the right band with the right mode, that's what gives you the perfect tactical picture. Which brings us to a harsh reality of the bridge. CPA and TCPA are a forecast, not a verdict. ARPA is an incredible machine, but remember, it only predicts what happens if nobody changes anything. It doesn't steer the ship for you. Those numbers are a warning, but it is ultimately your job to turn that wheel and break the forecast. So, the next time the fog rolls in and visibility drops to absolute zero, are you going to blindly trust the machine, or do you truly understand what it's telling you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay curious.